Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Wilson Jr., and this is the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast, the music podcast on where I interview singers and musicians from genres of black music: gospel, jazz, blues, old school classic soul, old school hip hop, today's hip hop and R&B, Caribbean, Latin, Afrobeat, Afro-Latina, blue-eyed soul, disco, go-go, line dances, and the Lost 45s. So come with me as I take you on to a trip to the destination genre of black music right now on the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Legal Shield is a proud sponsor of the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Have you been involved in any types of accidents? Have you been a victim of identity theft? Have you been a victim of a computer fraud scam? Have you been in disputes with your tenants or landlords? If your loved one dies and they didn't write up a will for you or for your family, or you and your spouse are filing for divorce, or if you need help by opening up your small business, give Legal Shield a try. Visit their website at LegalShield.com and tell them you heard it here on the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Do it today. You'll be glad you did. Welcome to the Black Soul Music Experience. I'm Sam Wilson Jr., and I have a special guest on my show. This lady that I'm about to introduce is from Los Angeles, California. She is a singer and songwriter who's known for fusing soul, gospel, funk, and jazz with an uplifting social message. Her new LP, Messages from the Soul, The Power of Music, is available right now on the Expansion record label. Please help me welcome to the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Sheree Brown. Hi, Sheree. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and you? Welcome to my podcast. Glad to have you here.
It's my pleasure.
Okay. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you live in Los Angeles, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the 1 year anniversary of those wildfires that have been taking place. How far are you where those wildfires took place?
Um, Quite a bit. 45 minutes away at least on the highway, taking the freeway, both directions. So there was the Palisades, which was west, further west near the beach, and then there was the Eaton Fire, which was in Altadena, Pasadena, which is to the east, northeast. So if I was to take the freeway, it would take about 45 minutes, 50 minutes each way.
Mm, okay. Well, again, our condolences to those families who have lost everything. I know it's going to be a long time to restore and to rebuild and to renew. So I have to ask that since we are in the new year of 2026. So, as always, most of America knows who you are. Most of the world knows who you are. So, I'm very delighted to have you here on my show. So, let us begin, shall we?
All right, I'm going to drink my morning coffee.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, you're originally from Los Angeles, California. What section were you in Los Angeles? Was it West LA or East LA?
Central. Central. That's where I was born. That's where I was raised. Um, I was probably about a 10-minute drive, 15, no, about a 10-minute drive from the University of Southern California. So that's the area that I was further west. Now I live in closer to not West LA, but I live further west now.
Okay. Now, were your parents or any of your family relatives in the music industry or that they had 9 to 5 day jobs?
My dad had a 9 to 5, and my mom took care of us. She stayed home. I'm the oldest of eight, so she stayed home and took care of the kids.
And which high school did you go to?
I went to St. Mary's Academy High School, a girls all girls Catholic school in Inglewood, California.
And which college did you go to?
I went to Los Angeles City College before I started really getting involved with the music and started traveling, and but that's where I started out at.
And what was your major in college?
It was music.
And who did you want to be when you grow up?
Hmm. I wanted to be an attorney. And in fact, in high school, I got real involved in speech and debate, and I was really good at it. But I was still doing my music. I started writing music when I was, what, 10? And so I used to say I'm going to be a singing lawyer. But by the time I was in, well, by the time I got to be a senior in high school, it became a little bit more clear that the music was taking over. In fact, right after I graduated that summer, they used to have this annual talent show, kind of like American Idol on a smaller scale, but it was held. The finalists, if you made it to the finals, went to the Hollywood Bowl in Hollywood, California, which is a major venue, and performed. And so through the whole competition process, I made it to the finals, and in the division of vocal soloist, and I won in my division. I won. I was playing my guitar, and I performed two of my songs that I had written with an orchestra playing on the stage with me, and that was just an overwhelming experience. And so that's when I said, "Well, this is my journey." Mhm.
Now, you mentioned you started singing at the age of 10, but how old were you when you started writing songs?
I wrote my first song when I was 10, and I think I was in the fifth grade, or fifth or sixth grade. And of course, it was a funny song, but I was very serious about it. That's the first time I wrote something that I could say, well, this is the song I wrote. So,
Was being a singer and songwriter your calling?
uh, I believe so.
Now, growing up, who were some of your favorite singers?
Dionne Warwick was like major for me. In our house, we had vinyls of hers, and we listened to it a lot. Nancy Wilson, but my parents were very much into music, R&B. Then it was when I was much younger than that. It was the Motown sound. But then Dionne Warwick was major back then too. So I really got into listen to her music, and then a little later was Stevie Wonder, and then by the time I got to high school, it was Minnie Riperton and Gil Scott Heron, and there's this folk singer, a late folk singer. She passed away years and years ago at a pretty young age, named Laura Nero. I think she was from New York, and
Yeah.
it's funny because last night I was listening to some Laura Nero. And so Laura Nero had this album called Christmas and the Beads of Sweat. So I would listen to that. Then I would listen to Minnie Riperton's "Come to My Garden" album, and then Stevie. So and then of course Dionne Warwick.
Mm, okay. Now, who were your musical influences that had inspired you to sing?
Uh, I started out it's interesting. That's the first time anyone's ever asked that question. And as I think about it, it was something innate. I wasn't listening or being inspired by a musician when I started playing the guitar, when I was attracted to the guitar and picked it up. And what happened is there used to be called the Spiegel catalog. So Spiegel had it and Sears had a catalog. And you'd get it once a year or twice a year and it'd be really thick. And I'd always go through it. When I would go through it, I was immediately attracted to the instrument pages. And somehow I was just attracted to the guitar. And I would just look at the guitar and I'd say, one day I want to play the guitar. And so one Christmas, which is my birthday also, my parents got me a guitar. And then I was in the fourth grade and I didn't take it seriously enough. The guitar got broken. So the next Christmas came along and I said, okay, Mom and Dad, can I get another guitar? I promise I'll take care of it. So this time I got a guitar and I have a cousin who came over and taught me how to tune it up, and she brought some chords books and showed me how to follow the chords, and I just was inspired to do that. It was just something about the guitar and the will to learn how to play it. So when you have a guitar, you have two different kinds. You have a steel string or nylon strings. Steel strings are harder. They're made out of steel, and then even some of the strings are steel strings that are wrapped in a steel wire, and they're much tougher on your hands. Nylon are made out of nylon, much easier on the fingers. So the whole goal when you're playing the guitar is that you have to press the strings down on the fretboard hard enough so you can get a sound. And so that's really hard, especially on a steel string, because what happens is that you have to acquire calluses on the tip of your fingers, the hand that makes the chords on the long part of the neck of the guitar and the frets, right? And so I remember going to bed at night and my fingers throbbing from the pain, and I couldn't even touch it on anything. I was sleeping with my hand, out like that. And I'd get up the next morning and my fingers would be pained, and I'd go back and trying to make the sound of that chord. And I did it until I was able to do it. And so I'm saying all that to say that it was a journey that just was innate in me. And I did not take my first guitar lesson till I was in college. I was just out of high school. And so I was self-taught. And while I was learning the chords, I would do these things where I'd say, okay, I wonder how it would sound if I lifted this finger off the string and left it an open string. So I'd be playing chords. Actually, they were jazz chords. And then some chords people couldn't figure out what I was playing. And so that's the blessing I feel of being um, one plus of being self-taught, because I don't think I would have had that experiential, you know, the experimenting part would not have been a part of it. Although I think it's important to, learn the basics of music theory, which I was able to do.
Now, how would you describe your sound?
I would say it's jazz, well, a little flavor of jazz, soul, R&B, pop, um, some slight tinges of gospel. But it's interesting because when I was with Capitol Records, when you were signed back then, you were either signed, everything was compartmentalized. So if you were black, you were R&B, where that's what the situation was at Capitol. And so other record companies, you could be crossover. My music was always or often labeled as crossover, but Capitol, because I was black, had me in R&B, and they didn't cross it over. And sometimes that was a little bit of a challenge because I wasn't R&B enough. I
Hmm.
couldn't be put in pop, and so it was easier for them to pigeonhole me, which could be limiting. But I felt I learned. My mentor used to be trombone player Alexander Thomas. He was one of the original trombone players for Earth, Wind, and Fire,
Hmm.
and even Patrice Rushen. We were really good friends. We were talking one day. Both of them had the philosophy: there's either two kinds of music, good music or bad music. And
Hmm.
so that's what I allowed myself to be driven by, especially being in a situation where uh, that establishment didn't allow for that crossover.
Now, you began your career on Capitol Records back in the early 80s. What was your first debut LP?
Straight ahead.
Hmm, okay. I think I got a chance to see a few of your albums on iTunes, so I'll probably
Great.
check that out a little later on at the end of the show. Now, how many albums have you released on the Capitol label?
Two.
Hmm, okay. And how would you compare the music that you did back in the 80s to the music that we are seeing today?
Hmm. I think that I was ahead of my time. And when I was touring and going to the radio stations back then in the 80s, early
Mhm.
80s, that was something that a lot of the DJs and radio personalities spoke to. The interesting thing is now it's like the music I did then was timeless. And even when I've done shows, so I'm working with a number of upcoming uh, artists and musicians that are very talented and work with a number of, you know, acts out there and artists that are pretty prominent. And I remember when we first started working together, which probably was about 10 years ago, they were like, "Whoa, how can I get your music? Wow, this sounds like it's today." And so, especially in Europe and the UK, that's why people still play it, and I have a really big audience out there. There are some really there's some young artists that are coming up that are incorporating jazz and hip hop and they're being more musical, um, technically speaking, that I feel have a lot that are very similar to what I was doing back then. And so, I'm working. I have a new album out, and my goal with this new album uh, was to incorporate who I am, what my music is about, that foundational part of my music, and add some of the newer things that are going on. So as a result, working with the younger artists, it's an infusion. So I was able to maintain myself, but also to expand, and that's a lot of fun for me. And so I think that a lot of what I was doing then is still happening now, and a number of the newer, younger artists are are incorporating that. One of the things that's a testimony is that I work a lot with. I over the years I've worked a lot with Patrice Rushen. I've co-written probably about 20 songs with her, and people are always sampling or doing a remake of a song, and there's songs that I've been a part of co-writing with her, and that's a testimony not only to her as an artist, but to me as a co-writer. Um, Janae's Groove thing. Haven't You Heard was a a big hit in the mid '70s, late '70s. Then Jeanne incorporates it in their song. It becomes the new song groove thing. What in the '90s, and as a co-writer of "Haven't You Heard," um, then that makes me a co-writer of a new song. And the same thing. Then later, there's Kirk Franklin's "Looking for You," and he also incorporated "Haven't You Heard." So good music, that's a testimony to good music. It's timeless, and I feel very blessed that I'm able to still be out there on that level and still be able to do some new things and be adventurous. This new album, I decided to be adventurous. I decided to make the theme about joy because dancing brings joy. Scientific data shows that dancing brings joy and it brings people together. And with all of the stuff that's going on, not only in the States but in the world, we need to maintain our joy in the midst of it as we
Right.
stand and do whatever we need to do. We need to
Hmm.
keep joy, and that can be done and is done through music and the arts.
Right. Mm. And speaking of Jeanne, which I see those two LPs that you've gotten right behind you, which certified gold or platinum, you co-written the song Jeanne, or should I say Groove Thing, which
Yes,
was Renee Neufeld and Jean Norris Baylor, better known as Jeanne. What was it
yes.
like co-writing the song with those two ladies that I've just mentioned?
Well, what happened is the magic of a good song that is either sampled or some type of cover done. So I did not meet Renee Neufeld until years after Jeanne's Groove Thing came out and it became a hit. And I've never met Gene. And so I did not work with them directly because what they did on a creative level with their producers and other writers, they took Haven't You Heard and they incorporated that into this new song, Groove Thing.
Mhm.
And so I can't say what it was like to work with them. I can say what it was like to hear that finished product being played on the radio. Oh my goodness. That was just so exciting and special. I'd be driving down the street and well, it's a groove thing. And I'd say I wouldn't even know the person in the car that's blasting the song. And I said, "You hear that song? You hear that song? I helped to write that song." Of course, they probably thought I was some crazy woman, right?
Oh.
But even now, when I hear it, it's just such joy. When I hear the stuff, the songs that haven't you heard, the things that I've worked on with Patrice and looking for you, and my own music. It is exhilarating. It feels like it was just released. That is the feeling that just overtakes me. That is such a wonderful feeling for me.
Mm. Now, you mentioned Patrice Russian, which are about the next question I'm about to ask you, that you co-written with the gospel hit "Looking for You," performed by Kirk Franklin, and I've been hearing it on Black radio, and they be playing it at the clubs on Friday night, which was
Right.
sampled from Patrice Russian's song "Haven't You Heard." Now, please share with our audience on what that was about. Have you got a chance to meet Kirk Franklin, or
I have.
did they just
I have.
sample?
I have. And what happened, what is it? I can't remember. It's the Gospel Awards. It's the Grammy version of the Gospel Awards. And that song was nominated um,
Was it a
for an
Stella?
award.
Was it a Stella Award?
Stellar. That's right. It was the Stellar Award. So my husband and I, we decided we would go to the Stellar Awards and we participate in the festivities. And I met his manager And they sat, my husband and I, in the front of in the front rows of the stage. And so I asked her, I said, well, can you make it possible to take us backstage so that I could actually meet him? She said, sure. So she brought us backstage, and it was a small group of folks. He introduced me to his wife. I think one of his children were there. And I was thanking him, for looking for you. And he was saying, well, thank you for the song, Haven't You Heard? Thank you for that contribution, because that was a part of the song. So that was fun. That was fun. And we went to the Still Awards specifically so that I could meet Kirk Franklin. A nice man, talented.
Now, oh, yes. Okay. Now, you toured around the world, including Germany, Egypt, Israel, and Italy. Have you received a standing ovation from audience from those countries that I've just mentioned?
From Italy. And what happened is that I don't know if they still have what's called the USO tours. When I was growing up, the late Bob Hope, legendary actor, would do
Yes.
these major USO tours and performances for the U.S. military, and it was a big thing, and it would normally be televised. And as a little girl, I would watch that and say, "Oh wow, I really want to do that when I get older. I want to, make it with my music. I really want to do that." And that's way before I was signed with the Capitol. That's just my dream. As I think I might have been in junior high, but I think I wasn't even in junior high yet. So anyway, when I was with Capitol Records, I had the opportunity to do a USO tour, and they asked me where would I want to go, and I told them I want to go where no one wants to go. So they sent me on this USO tour. It was Italy, Germany, Israel, Egypt. We passed through Austria, and we were on at this, in the Sinai Desert, and I'd play at a missile site where there might be only 7 to 10 military personnel on that site. But I also performed for the international peacekeeping troops, which were the U.S. and Colombia and a couple of other countries. But one of the things that happened, I remember performing in Italy for the Italian army, and it was quite a group. And I performed. And so what happened, there was not a standing ovation per se, but after I performed, there was a long, long line of the military staff waiting to give me their telephone number, or not their telephone number, but their address, so that I could send them back my album from Capitol. And that was overwhelming. It was like, wow. Because it was the way it was set up. It was a smaller group, small. I think the Italian army, I think when I performed in Italy, that was my biggest audience.
You mentioned Bob Hope because the Bob Hope that I knew growing up, because he was known for all of his specials on NBC. You mentioned the overseas Christmas tours. I got a chance to check it out, but not all of it. But they were showing some clips from all of the tours with different celebrities from different decades. So that was the Bob Hope that I knew growing up for everything. Now, you were nominated for an Emmy for PSA addressing violence prevention. Please share with our audience what that was about.
Well, in I guess it was the 1990s, I co-produced a public service announcement um, called "This Street," and it was focusing on children, and there's a lot of gang violence during that time, and that particular that particular PSA was dedicated to that, and so I produced it. I did a song, co-wrote a song with another writer, Kevin Johnson, a senior, I believe it is, and it was, and the song was called "This Street." And so we went and I uh, co-produced it with Pam Robinson and one of the educational stations out here in Los Angeles, and they played it, and they incorporated some animation for this song, and we got nominated for an Emmy for it. In fact, this is my certificate showing the nomination. So when you get nominated for an Emmy, they send you a certificate, and then there's a seal and a watermark for the Emmy emblem.
Wow. Congrats to that because
Thanks.
as a former Viacom CBS Paramount employee for 35 years, we get stuff from the Advertising Council. I call them the scary people, known for Smokey the Bear and McGruff the Crime Dog and the United
Mm,
Negro College Fund and the National Association Committee to Prevent Child Abuse and also the the new one from the 90s about domestic abuse and the
yeah.
new campaign about love has no labels. So those ads scares me, especially the United Negro College when they had those chains for breaking. And I told my mom, please don't turn off the light. I get nightmares from
Oh
watching those
no!
PSAs.
Wow,
But the best thing that I liked about them is when you have my favorite celebrities that'll just put me to sleep.
that's
So
great.
that was the ad counselor that I knew, and we get stuff from the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. So those are the
That's
PSAs
great.
that scares me still up
Well,
to this
this
day.
wow. Well, this was fun because we featured a teenager. Well, he was preteen, and he does a little rap. There's a little rap section in the middle of the song, and he's dancing, and this little animated character that I created with one of my brothers, actually, my youngest brother Michael, and he's they animated it where he's dancing right next to the live boy, you know, and then music is going, and then uh yeah, that was it was fun to do that, and it was meaningful also for me. The message was meaningful.
Now, let's talk about the children's book that you have written. Let me get this name right. Shakanaka, is that correct?
That's right. That's correct.
Please share with our audience on what that book is about.
That book, first of all, was co-written by my husband Douglas Johnson Sr. and Pishot Hunt, who also is the artist who did all of the illustrations. And my in-laws they were 80 something years old, and they went to Zimbabwe. And when they came back, my father-in-law adopted a phrase, a greeting that was shared with him back then. It was Jakanaka. And basically it's like you have aloha or hello. Jakanaka it meant to travel well and have a beautiful life. And uh, and he expanded it. He expanded on that by he was a public speaker, and he was asked often to speak at funerals and going home celebrations, and he would say Jakanaka, may your life be pleasurable as long as love lasts, life lasts. And so when we were writing the book, we decided to write the story around Jakanaka and that whole greeting, and that's how it came about.
Okay. Now, let's talk about your new LP that I just mentioned in the intro called Messages from the Soul, The Power of Music, which was released on December 21st, 2025. Tell us about your new LP. As I mentioned in the intro, that your music has infusion of all types of genres and blending into one with an uplifting social message. Tell us about that, please.
So, well, there is a series of books that I've written. The first one is called Messages from the Heart. And included in that book are stories of women of all ages overcoming life challenges. And the second one is called Messages from the Spirit, which are stories of young adult women overcoming challenges. And both of those books were accompanied by, they are accompanied by a music CD that I produced. And what I did is took a song and dedicated to each woman in the chapter, their chapter, and it's included in the book. So, Expansion Records released the first one, they released the second one, and both of them were released ahead of the book. Well, the third and the final book of this trilogy is called Messages from the Soul. And my husband, Douglas Johnson Sr., is doing that, and they're stories of men overcoming challenges. So each book features art that is dedicated to each person in their story and the music. So this album is, the music came about as a result of dedicating songs to the men who told their stories. And so we felt, the great thing is Expansion Records released the first two, so it's speaking with them. When we're doing this trilogy, you know, let's do this again, for the third and final. So that's how it came about. First of all, the second thing is that I was sharing a little earlier about joy. I intentionally worked on the music, and it's a little bit more up tempo than what I normally do. Of course, there are a couple of songs that are not, and and what I did is collaborated with my peers and some of the younger artists and musicians coming up, and I co-wrote a song with my son and one of his friends who's a pretty popular DJ. And I said, I need an Afro beat. Give me an Afro beat and a track with an Afro beat. And so they came up with it, and I came up with my guitar. It's called Free to Move. Then I co-wrote a song with my daughter called Chapter 4, and it's related to one of the chapters in the book. And the story is Chapter 4. So the song is Chapter 4. And then here's an interesting thing. About a year and a half ago, I was going through some old cassettes. I found some old cassettes. I said, let me listen to this and see, what's on here. And when I listened to it, there was a recording of Patrice Rushen and I. It was a recording of us we were 19 and 20, I think. And we were back at she was still at home with her parents and her younger sister. And so I was at her house. And I was just recording what we were doing. I was playing the guitar, and she was playing the bass. She plays all kind of instruments. It's not just the piano, but she decided to do the bass. And so we're, I hear it. And I said, "Wow!" And so I called Patrice, and I said, "Patrice, for this album, right?" I said, "Patrice, I found this old song. Why don't we finish it for this album?" So that was over 45 years ago.
Wow.
And this song is called Rays of Sunshine, and there's a reprise version of it. Both of them are on this new album. It is so much fun to, first of all, to still be able to do this, to be around to do it, and even be around and do it, right? So many of our peers are no longer here with us to share their talent. So I just celebrated a milestone. I celebrated my 70th birthday on this past Christmas. My husband and I celebrated our 45th wedding anniversary. And 45 years ago, this time, we were releasing my first Capitol record, Straight Ahead. So to be able to say 45 years later, I'm just releasing a new album. And I love this album. I love everything I do. But my whole thing is that I want people to go out and buy it. And download it. Because we can have the greatest music, but if people are not hearing it, then it is not doing what it's supposed to do. And so I decided I'm going to beg. I want to tell them, not, I feel like I don't want to beg, but no, get it because it
Mm-hmm.
is worth getting it. I love it. We spent 2 years working on it, and now we're starting to get some feedback, which is very positive across the board. We even have a song called Power, and it kind of has some gospel flavors and messages, but we did a house mix of it. Now I'm not into house music,
Mm-hmm.
but one of my partners that I work with, Steve Barry Cohen, did the production of this house remix, and he did a great job, and I like it. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Wow. Now, how is your new LP differ from the albums that you did back in the early 80s?
It's very similar, except it has a few more danceable songs. We did like the first single that was released, I'm Gonna Rock Bop Bop. We did three different remix versions, including within those three different versions, the instrumental of that, the remix. They're called the rewind remixes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I played the acoustic guitar in all of them except for one.
Mm-hmm.
And my it's still me, so I don't think it is that far off. I thought both of those albums were so well produced. Richard Rudolph did the first one, and Andre Fisher did the second one. And then my mentor and music director at the time, Alexander Thomas, was involved with both of them. And so I have that as a marker to gauge, is it close to sounding like that? Um, I'm always striving to get the same quality, from it. Um, I don't have, because I'm independent. I'm not with a major label. They're not the finances behind producing an album. So there's certain limitations, and so I've learned to work around those limitations to the point where they're no longer limitations.
Right.
So yeah, but there's certain things that you can do with a budget, a major budget, that you can't do um, with a budget that is quite a bit different than a major budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Now, while you're not on tour, you and your husband, along with Brenda Hewitt, formed a new entertainment company called Sarah Bells. Please share with our audience on what the company is all about and how many years was your company was in existence.
Well, we started it out, my husband and I, probably in the early 2000s. And then what we did is we kind of restructured um, our business and invited Brenda Hewitt to be a part of it. And so Expansion Records, for example, is an independent label, but they have great credibility and credits. And that's a good thing for me since I'm not dealing with a major. It's great to be working with a company like Expansion Records. And so they distribute the music for our company, Cerevel's Inc. And so under that umbrella, we have the music and we have the books. So the Jakanaka books, the Messages book series, and and then we're looking forward to doing some more things like besides continuing to do some things as far as performances, but speaking engagements and things that are related to the Messages Project. And I'm looking forward to being able to do that for this last book with my husband Doug. Um, we did a book tour for the Jakanaka Project in the early 2000s, and it did very well. We independently, under our company, we independently published the book, and we probably at least 30,000 families throughout the U.S. have that book now. And so I was focusing mainly on preschool and up to third grade because that's the time you really share things with those minds. That's the time that they start to formulate their characters and lifestyles based on what they learn. And so the book Jakanaka, it addresses self-esteem, bullying, especially bullying. And so I was able to go to and travel, go to the different libraries, the different schools. What was originally targeting pre-K and up to third graders now is all ages. So what would happen is the directors of the Head Start program would have me come and do, because I would do this interactive presentation with my guitar, and the book comes with a DVD, a 10-minute DVD where I'm narrating. It has a little animation and music, so you can show it by itself, or you can show it along while you're reading the book. What I would do is both when I did my presentation. And so it's a little black girl, but what I found is that it transcended it transcended age, culture, race, because what happens when the younger folks and even the older, when they start getting into the story, and it's so well put together, especially along with the DVD, um, it's so well put together that they don't see color. They see this little girl, that's me. Wow, they tore up her homework. Wow, they pulled her hair. Wow, for boys and girls, that's me. And it's, there's a mentor. Her favorite teacher, Mr. Jesse, shows up, and so you have a mentor figure, which is important for the young people. So what would happen is I would do these. Some of the directors would have me come in and do my presentation, and I would do the same exact presentation that I would do for the kids, for the directors of Head Start program, the adults. Just changed up a little bit, but not much. And then the head director would purchase books, and after I do the presentation, they'd say, "Well, you know, your director bought a book for each of you," and they were excited. Oh my gosh! And they would stand in line to get my signature on the books, right? And so what would happen? I went to Spelman College for an alumni event, and the alumni who were adults were purchasing the books, and there was this one alumni who had a teenage daughter, and the teenage daughter was so excited that the mother had bought the book. And the mom said, "This is my book. You can read it, but it's my book."
Mm.
And so grandmothers would get it, and they'd have it as a desktop piece, and they'd say, "This book is staying right here with me. My grandkids come over, and I read it to them." And so it's a special book, and it's available. If anyone's interested in purchasing it, it's available through my website at uh, at ShereeBrownMusic.com.
Now, here's a question that I always ask my guests: living or dead, which artist that you wish you wanted to meet or to perform with?
Minnie Riperton. hmm Hands down, no questions asked. When I
Mm.
was signed with Capitol Records, Minnie she had passed away just about a year before, and
Mhm.
um, and they had Richard Rudolph, who was married to her, produced my first album. Capitol did. They got in touch with him, and so I didn't get a chance to meet her, but I was in her home because I would get together with Dick, and we, of course, be working on the project. I got to meet Maya Rudolph when she was like 7 years old, and then Minnie and Richard's son, who's a few years older than Maya, Mark. But that was as close as I could get, you know. And Chicago, which is where she was from, and Richard, from my understanding, was a big, major supporter of my albums. Yeah. So much to the point I remember I was on a promotional tour, and one of the the guys that work with Capitol said that they actually got kind of caught, not prepared really, because they didn't know it would take off. That first album would just take off like that. And so that's never a good thing if you have an album out and people are listening and there's a lot of airplay and you can't get the product, because then back then it was vinyl. But
Mhm.
in the store, if your first choice isn't there, you're going to go to your second choice, and often you don't come back to get that first choice. So but I think that it had to do with the connection with Minnie, and being, from Chicago, and Richard's involvement and the sound, because people often compared my sound to her, although no, those high notes, you just can't come. I,
Yeah,
there's
no
nothing like that,
comparison.
right?
Right.
No comparison. It was the vibe and the kind of feeling and the music, maybe my lower register of my voice, but yeah.
Now, here on the Black Soul Music Experience, I always ask my guests who are their favorite top 10 R&B black artists of all time. Now, since I have you, Sheree, we're going to do the Black Soul Music Experience top 10 classic soul artists of all time. Now, here's how it works. We start like a top 10 countdown, like the show, America's Top 10, hosted by the late Casey Kasem. We start at the bottom five. We figure out who was the best singer, but didn't get any recognition. In other words, they were on the major record label, but didn't get it marketed or promoted like it's supposed to. And when we get to the
Excuse me.
and when we get to the top five, we'll find out who was the million selling top five artist of all time. In other words, did that artist receive any top 10 number one hits? Did that artist receive the gold or platinum or double platinum or triple platinum or today's diamond platinum? Or did that artist receive the Grammy or an American Music Award or a Soul Train Award or a BET Award or MTV VMA Award? Did that artist got us inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Or did that artist perform that song on American Bandstand or Soul Train or the Midnight Special or NBC's Saturday Night Live or Solid Gold? Or did they had their music video, which was either aired on BET or MTV or VH1 or any other shows across the country? Did they had their prime time
Excuse me.
special aired on CBS or NBC or ABC? or did they had that special on PBS, whether it's Great Performances, or that they had that show in March during Pledge Month, or did they had their live concert special on HBO or Showtime? So, Cherie, are you ready to take the challenge?
Just some clarification.
Yes,
So the bottom five are people that were really didn't get a lot of recognition.
right. Because they were on the major record labels, but they didn't get their LPs marketed or promoted.
Huh. That's
Like I'll give
interesting.
you an I'll give you an example. We'll put Phyllis Hyman at number 10. She was one of the best singers ever, and she was on the Arista label at the end of the 70s into the 80s.
Mm.
Even though there were some good songs on there, but the record label Arista didn't either market it or promoted it like they supposed to. So she was one of the good singers, but you had some stiff competition out there. So we'll put Phyllis Hyman at number 10. So I started off at number 10.
Here's someone, but I think she got a bit of recognition. Angela Bofield.
Yes, Angela Bofield, one of another artist that was on the Arista label back at the end of the 70s and then later switched over to Capitol Records at the end of the 80s. She has a genre of smooth jazz and R&B and pop and Latin jazz too, just to name a few. She had a couple of LPs. Some of them did well, but not that much. One of the songs that she wrote from her LP Angel the Night called I Try. Now, at first, when I saw the music video from Will Downing while I was watching BET's Midnight Love, I didn't know that Angelo Bofield wrote the song. And when I got a chance to pick up the Best of Angelo Bofield album and CD as well, oh, okay, now I got a chance to see that she wrote the song, even though it didn't become a hit for her, but it became a hit for Mr. Will Downing, which it became a top 10 hit on Billboard's contemporary jazz and R&B charts. So we'll put Angelo Bofield at number 9. Rest in peace to singer Angelo Bofield. Well, we should be at number
Um,
8.
okay, I would say Phoebe Snow.
Ah, yes, Phoebe Snow. Now, I didn't know Phoebe Snow that well, but I only knew her from doing those commercials for General Foods International Coffees. That was the Phoebe Snow that I knew. And then I was watching Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary on NBC when they were showing clips from all of the guest musicians who had appeared on Saturday Night Live, and I saw Phoebe Snow along with Linda Ronstadt. So they were doing their version of "It Is in His Kiss" that was originally done by Betty Everett. So we'll put Phoebe Snow at number 8. Who should be at number 7?
I just had the person in mind, and it slipped that fast. Um, oh shucks. Um, because Phoebe Snow made me think about this person. It's a woman. Hmm, Angela Bofield. Phoebe Snow. Um, uh, oh shucks. I'm stumped because I had another woman and I
Mm-hmm.
just lost it. Because I remember getting oh Brenda Russell.
Singer-songwriter Brenda Russell made her scene back in the mid 70s. She was known for her debut song called So Good, So Right. And I didn't know that she was a songwriter back then. When I first found out that she had some other LPs back in the mid 80s, and when she written the song called Piano in the Dark, that was back in the mid late 80s. When I heard one of the persons who were introducing her, she was known as writing songs for different artists. And one of the songs was called Get Here. Although it didn't become a hit for her, but it became a hit for Miss Olita Adams for her debut LP Circle of One. And another song that I didn't know that she performed was If Only for One Night. Now, it didn't become a song for her, but it became a hit for the late Luther Vandross. So she is best known for writing songs for so many different artists of different genres of music. So we'll put Brenda Russell at number 7. Who should be at number 6?
Um, hmm. I'm thinking of all of the albums that I went and checked out. Because I used to spend a lot of time in the record store coming up, and I would just look for things that nobody heard of or heard
Mm,
about. So
okay.
I'm trying to picture some of that. Uh, and what number is this? Six?
Number 6.
Um, hmm. Mtume.
Ah, yes, M. Tume, which was founded by the late James M. Tume, and best known for the debut hit Juicy Fruit, which was later sampled by the notorious B.I.G., and best known for some other hits, including You, Me, and He. But James Ntume didn't stop there. He's responsible for doing the TV music score for the cop drama series New York Undercover, which was aired on Fox from 1994 to 1998. So he'll be best known for that. And also, here's an FYI that you may not know. Here in the NYC, we used to have WRKS-FM 98.7 KISS FM, which was WOR-FM, and it was RKO General. But during the 80s, which was the me decade, Reagan and Bushonomics came in, and then you had all these corporate companies buying up everything. So CBS was sold to Mr. Lawrence Tish, which was Lowe's Hotels and Movie Houses. NBC was sold to GE, and then ABC was sold to Capital Cities. So the networks were sold to those corporate companies, and radio and records were left out. So they were sold to other companies. And then when 98.7 KISS FM was sold to MS Communications, that's when they changed the format to classic soul and today's R&B. And every Sunday morning they have Open Line hosted by the late Bob Slade. And yes, James Ntume was the co-host and Bob Pickett. So they would be on every Sunday morning from 9 to 10. And then during the later years, they would expand it to 2 hours at a new time from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And I got a chance to see James Ntume. He was at Truman High School back in 1997. They had their little seminar back then. So it was nice seeing James Ntume for the very first time. So rest in peace to the founder of the group Ntume, Mr. James Ntume, at number 6. All right, we're up to number 5.
So this artist, late artist, was a very very good friend of mine, and she actually was one of the bridesmaid in my wedding, and she sang a song that she did a duet that became very popular. She sang that at Doug and our wedding. But Sarita Wright,
Ah, yes, Sarita Wright. She was once married to Stevie Wonder, and she is best known for writing songs with then Stevie Wonder, and then she had her solo song called Harmer Love, which was written by Stevie Wonder. But she'll be best remembered for her 1980 song I'm Born Again duet with the late Billy Preston.
yes,
So she is best known for those hits, but there are some others, but nothing couldn't compare to those two songs that came out in 1975 and the other one in 1980. So rest in
and that
peace
and
to the.
yes,
Yes, go
"With
ahead.
You I'm Born Again" is the song that she sang at our wedding.
Yes, yes. And that was from the movie Fast Track.
Yeah.
That came out in 1980, which starred Gabe Kaplan and many others. So rest in peace to the late Sarita Wright at number 5. Who should be at number 4?
So are we're going up with more known or
No,
okay.
the better known with the best selling
Okay,
top 10
okay.
hits.
Dionne Warwick, of course.
Yes, Dionne Warwick representing East Orange, New Jersey, and the cousin of the late Cissy Houston and the late Whitney Houston. She had a string of hits during the 60s, teamed up with producer the late Burt Bacharach and Hal David, known for her tunes including Don't Make Me Over, Walk On By, Do You Know the Way to San Jose, Paper Mache, and the other one, I'll Never Fall in Love Again.
I love that
And
song.
then during the 70s, she had teamed up with the late Tom Bell, duet with the Spinners. Then came You and Just As Long As We Have Love. And then she had some other LPs, including Track of the Cat. And when she got to the end of 1979, she was on Scepter Records and then to Warner Brothers Records, and then switched over to Arista Records with her LP entitled Dion, produced by Barry Manilow. And the whole album was produced by Barry Manilow. And there are some other tracks that was produced by different artists, including Deja Vu, which was written and produced by Isaac Hayes. And that was a top 10 hit, best known for the Quiet Storm format. And
Yeah.
she had some other tunes as well, including the theme from the ABC TV series Finder of Lost Loves. At first, it was Luther Vandross and then later Glenn Jones. So it was a top 10 hit. But her other number one hit, that's What Friends Are For, which features Elton John, Stevie Wonder, and Gladys Knight. It was a number one hit on Billboard's R&B Black Singles charts in January and also number one on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles charts. And that song has raised over millions of dollars for the American Foundation for AIDS Research, and that was founded by the late Elizabeth Taylor. So we'll put Dionne Warwick at number 4. And oh, yes, she got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the
Yeah.
class
Yeah.
of 2024. So put Dionne Warwick at number 4. We're up to
I
number
would
3.
I would switch. I would put Minnie Riperton at number 4
Okay, so we'll
and
put.
then Dion at 3.
Okay, so we'll do a little switcheroo. We'll put Dion at 3 and Minnie Riperton at 4, representing the Windy City of Chicago, Illinois. She was a member of the group called Rotary Connection. And then by 1974, her LP Perfect Angel came out on the Epic CBS label, produced by Stevie Wonder. Number one song, Loving You, was number one on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles charts. There were some other tunes, including Come Inside My Love, Perfect Angel, and many others. There were some others, but that couldn't compare to the top 10. And she performed that song, Loving You, on Soul Train and American Bandstand. But unfortunately, we've lost her back around 1978 or 1979 from breast cancer. And yes, she was singing that song, Loving You, dedicated to Maya, her daughter. She'll always end the song dedicating that song to Maya. So we'll put Minnie Riperton at number 4, and we'll put Dion at number 3. Perfect. Who should be at number 2?
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
The Elements of the Universe, Earth, Wind, and Fire, founded by the late Maurice White back in 1969. The group has been spinning records for decades. They have won numerous awards, a couple of Grammys, American Music Awards, been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the class of 2000. The group has done genres of music, including gospel, African music, soul, and pop music. Best known for their top 10 hits, including Evo, That's the Way of the World, Shining Star, their number one hit, Keep Your Head to the Sky, Side by Side, Boogie Wonderland, Do It with the Emotions, and many others. They're still performing today, although we've lost the founder, Maurice White, but the group is still performing. So we'll put Earth, Wind, and Fire at number 2. And now we're up to number 1.
Stevie Wonder.
The one and only Stevie Wonder started at the age of 12. He was on Motown Records from its inception. He was there with his number one hit, Fingertips, and he had some other tunes, including Uptight, For Once in My Life, My Sharia Moore, Signed, Sealed, and Delivered. And then when he got into the 70s, he became more consciousness. He was picking up where the late Marvin Gaye left off with the What's Going On LP. He did some LPs entitled Inner Visions. He had a couple of songs that's dealing with social issues, including Living for the City, dealt with systematic racism. Higher Ground is dealing with some problems in the community and abroad. And another song which didn't get a hit, but it was dealing with drug addiction. The name of the song was called Too High. And yes, he won a Grammy for that album, Inner Visions. Next album was called Fulfilling His First Finale. He had his number one song, You Haven't Done Nothing. And that was spoofing with the Nixon administration back in 1974. So it was number one on Billboard's Pop 100 Pop Singles charts. He had other albums, including Songs in the Key of Life, which includes Isn't She Lovely and I Wish. And then another album called Hotter Than July back in 1980, which includes the number one hit, Master Blaster Jammin'. He dedicated that to Bob Marley. And that album was dedicated in memory of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which includes the song that we always sing, Happy Birthday. We would play that at some of the clubs who used that birthday song. And yes, that song was later became a vehicle and was asking Congress to make Dr. King Day a national holiday. And when President Reagan signed the bill in 1983, it made Dr. King Day a national holiday. So the bad news is we had to wait till 3 years later, 1986, to become an official holiday. And yes, there were some black legislative elected officials, they wanted it to have it on his actual birthday. So as the nation celebrated Dr. King Day, there was only one state that didn't celebrate, and that was the state of Arizona. So we're still struggling and everything. And Stevie Wonder had kept on going. He participated in marches, including apartheid for South Africa. He participated in We Are the World from USA for Africa, number one on Billboard's R&B Black Singles charts and the Pop 100 Singles charts. He got an Oscar for the song I Just Called to Say I Love You from the 1984 movie Woman in Red. Got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the class of 1989 and a Kennedy Center honoree for the class of 1999. So hands down, we put down Stevie Wonder, the Wonder
Th-
Man, at number
that's
one.
the day that I was actually at Stevie's studio, recording studio here in Los Angeles with Sarita. I was hanging out with Sarita, and she said, "Well, let's go by the studio and see what's going on." And so we were there, and while we were there, he got a call, and he went into the control room. So we're outside the control room, so we still could hear what was happening. He got a call saying that it was Martin Luther King was successfully made a holiday. I was there at the studio when he got that call. I'll always
Mm.
remember it. Yeah,
Yes. Yes, the one and only Stevie Wonder. And let's not leave out, he made some appearances on television. He made appearance on Sesame Street on PBS and made an episode on The Cosby Show on NBC. So I don't want to leave those out. So hands down. So there we have it, the top 10 classic soul artists of all time. Well, Sheree, it's been a pleasure having you here on the
thank
Black
you.
Soul Music Experience podcast. Thank you so much. It was worth the wait as we kick off the year of 2026. Continued success on this
Thank you.
new album. I got a chance to download a couple of tracks from your new album and your previous albums when you was on the Capitol label. So again, thank you so
Appreciate it.
much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And you can go to my website at Sheree Brown, spelled SHE1REE Brown Music.com. And you can purchase things, find out how to get things. The new album was released internationally, available on most of the streaming platforms: Amazon, iTunes, Spotify. And then you can actually, if you're in the UK or European country, you can actually get the physical CD there. It's easy to be in that area, those countries, and receive it in the mail. Um, Otherwise, you can go to my website if you're here in the States, and you can order it through my website, and we'll get it right out to you. We decided to do that because the mailing, the shipping, especially with these tariffs, is just so high, and so I didn't want my supporters to have to go through that additional expense. Being here in the States, and we were working at making it as easy as possible. So I
Mhm.
appreciate this time, and
Okay.
thank you
Yes.
for
Yes.
inviting me.
Thank you for that quick plug. Download all the artists that we have talked about on this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Visit iTunes.com, Spotify.com, or purchase a CD at Amazon.com. Make sure you follow Sheree Brown. Follow her on her website at ShereeBrownMusic.com. Make sure you pick up her new CD entitled Messages from the Soul, the Power of Music. It is on the Expansion Records label, the number one independent label known for classic soul music since 1976. And you can check out her new LP, which is available now, streaming on iTunes, and check out some of her other previous LPs when she was on the Capitol label. That is also available on iTunes. And also check out her music videos available right now on YouTube. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to check out this episode, please subscribe to the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Look for me on these 5 platforms. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pocket Cast. And the link is riverside.fm/studio/Samuel Wilson Jr.'s. Don't forget to add the S to the end, dash studio. And I will be posting this episode on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And if you have a hard time getting onto Riverside.fm, then please become a member and subscribe to patreon.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. If you have a computer, put in your email address, put in your password, and you'll get into the Patreon homepage where you see different shows done by different creators. Make sure you go to the search box on the top and type in the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast, where you can check out all of my audio and video podcast episodes from season 4 and from season 5. And check out all of the video podcast clips that you may have missed. And if you have a hard time getting on to patreon.com, then I will be posting this episode on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. All you need to do is go to the YouTube homepage, go to the search box on top, and type in the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. If you like this episode, if you love my podcast, please subscribe, please support, please give me a thumbs up, please leave a comment, and please pass it on. Thank you for joining me as I close out this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience.
Well, that's about it for this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. I'm Sam Wilson Jr. Thank you for joining me, and please tune in next week for an all-new episode. The Black Soul Music Experience Podcast is sponsored by the support of listeners and viewers like you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Look for my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pocket Cast. And don't forget the link. The link is riverside.fm/studio/Samuel-Wilson Jr.'s-studio. And don't forget to check out my audio and video podcast episodes by becoming a member and subscribe to patreon.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. And please check out my video podcast episodes by subscribing to youtube.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. And please leave your comments, feedbacks, and replies by going to my Facebook homepage. Go to facebook.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. You can also tweet me on X, aka Twitter, at Sam Wilson Jr. 66. And follow me on Instagram at SAMM.Y2980. As always, partying, remember this. Reach for the top and your dreams will come true, and it can happen to you. From all of us, take care. God bless. Thanks for listening. Have a good week, and please be safe.